From the North American Division and the Media Missionaries of Network 7 Media Center, welcome to Mission Sonlight. As our media missionaries travel around the world, we witness the great ministry and mission of the Adventist movement and remember the early days of our spiritual forefathers and mothers. From the Rocky Hill Attic Press at the old Belden Farm, where James White first printed Present Truth, to the home of Joseph and Prudence Bates near the bay at Fairhaven, up to the Maple Grove Trail that leads to Ascension Rock on the William Miller Farm. These were the beginnings of the Adventist Church in what would be called the North American Division. You'll remember these pioneers' faith led them to leave the security of established churches and follow Jesus into new light. After the Great Disappointment in 1844, the fledgling group grew despite ridicule and attacks by neighbors and family. Over nearly 2 decades, these individuals served as missionaries to their own communities. As the movement grew, they were called to share what God had led them to believe with a wider audience. A formal church structure didn't emerge until May 1863. Next to the North American Division, Ellen White had great influence on the growth of the present South Pacific Division. She spent 9 years laboring in the Pacific. On her way to Australia from America, there's an interesting story where she stopped in the then Kingdom of Hawaii.
Ellen White stopped here at this very place in 1891 as she traveled from the United States to Australia for what we call today the Australian years. She left from San Francisco and 7 days later arrived here near Honolulu and then traveled on to the Samoans and down to Sydney. But while she was here in Hawaii, she went to visit the church members immediately as soon as she disembarked the boat, and then was invited to lunch at this place called the Polly, or the Polly Lookout today. We hear that there is a legend that when she looked at this place, she thought it was the closest thing to what she had seen in her visions of heaven. While we can't corroborate that in her writings, we can corroborate a little bit of what she did say and see at the time. She says, "We passed the stately coconut trees, loaded with their heavy fruit. We saw the bananas growing and a great variety of beautiful flowers blooming in profusion on every side. Hedges were made of flowering shrubs almost as tall as trees. There were trees in bloom with flowers that were new to me. We were on our way to a place called the Pali, and to reach there we had to ascend a 6-mile hill, and the scenery all the way was of a grand order. On reaching the eminence for which we started, we found great mountain peaks rising above us, and from the height where we stood, a terrible precipice yawned hundreds of feet deep, extending downward into the verdant valleys below. We took our lunch on a level spot of land in view of the grand scenery on every side."
Throughout these early years of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the growth and organizational movement progressed through the work of laymen and laywomen. Their continual search for truth led them to study more earnestly, discovering deeper precepts in Scripture.
Ellen White gave counsel that the work of God on this earth would never be finished until the lay people comprising the membership of our church and the ministers and administrators and pastors of our church came together in not just a superficial way, but in a real joining of the mind and the heart to help finish this work.
In the early 1900s, 2 men had a vision to train lay members to work in concert with pastors and administrators.
Madison College was founded in 1904. E.A. Sutherland and Percy McGann went there and began to work the model that Ellen White had given them to create a place where lay people could be trained in an efficient manner and go out to begin a work of spreading the gospel in the unentered parts of the United States as well as the rest of the world.
In time, these trained lay members would return to the Madison campus to share their experiences, pray together, and continue to cast a vision of sharing the story of Jesus with the world.
As they came together, this annual convention became known as the Laymen's Extension League. The Layman Extension League was a very simple meeting. It was lay people who were in ministry getting together to encourage each other. So those were the early days of lay people doing work and beginning to organize themselves in a way to encourage the work that they're doing and encouraging other lay people to actually get involved in doing something for the Lord.
By the early 1940s, leaders at the General Conference officially recognized the organization of Adventist self-supporting institutions.
That was the birth of the movement of ASI. Adventist Self-Supporting Institutions, ASI, born in 1947. Dr. E.A. Sutherland was selected as the first president for ASI, and the offices were formed at the General Conference level. ASI was a General Conference organization and began to coordinate the work of lay people coming together talking about what they were doing. This was happening up until the early 70s when some of the business people began to ask, couldn't we be a part of this organization?
Today, Adventist Laymen's Services and Industries is an international organization with lay people around the world participating in the Adventist mission.
I think it's important to say thank you to the visionaries who helped to foster the idea of Adventist lay people working together in a harmonious, organized way, connecting with the leadership of the church, with the leadership of the divisions and the General Conference, and working on major projects that have local and global impact.
When you involve yourself personally in a cause, it changes your life.
To be involved in the World Church has been a real blessing to me personally. And to see the action and the reaction and the work of God going on around the world, it has just been a real encouragement to me to see how God is working with our church and how He is leading our church. And even though there may be challenges, I see that God is still leading, He's still guiding, He's in control. We can trust Him.
What would our early pioneers say about 20 million members across 13 world divisions? Their home division, the North American division, now representing 1.2 million members in Canada, Bermuda, Guam, Micronesia, and United States. Could they imagine their church operates the second largest parochial educational system in the world and the second largest religion-based healthcare network in the United States? The 13th Sabbath offering this quarter will allow you to share in the church's mission through the projects at Holbrook Indian School in Arizona, Ebi Adventist School in the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and the Mamawi Ateskiton Native School in Alberta, Canada.
It's amazing to see what God has done over the years through the dedicated work of lay people joining themselves together to support the mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
During the coming weeks, as you prepare your gift for the 13th Sabbath on June 30th, consider the sacrifice and commitment that a group of lay people felt as they faced disappointment and scorn. In spite of everything, they persevered. Today, let's continue in their footsteps. We are the media missionaries of Network 7 Media Center, uniting the Seventh-day Adventist Church in mission and giving to the 13th Sabbath World Mission Offering. Reporting from the North American Division, this is Mission Sonlight.